Imagine a village.
Yeah.
It's far away from, from civilization. It's dusty, hot, isolated, the kind of place where the heat just shimmers off the ground.
Okay.
And in this entire village, there's exactly one well, just one, and one person owns it.
Right.
Now put yourself in the shoes of a villager. You're thirsty, your crops are wilting, you need water. So you walk up to the well owner.
And you have no other options.
You have exactly two choices in this life. You pay whatever crazy price that owner asks, or you go thirsty.
Yeah.
There is no competitor down the street offering a discount. There is no generic brand water. There is just the well.
It's a stark image, and what you're describing, it isn't just a hypothetical for a dystopian novel or, a scene from an old Western movie.
Yeah.
It is the fundamental economic baseline for understanding power. In that scenario, what happens to the price of water?
It skyrockets.
Of course. And what happens to the amount of water the village actually gets to drain?
It plummets.
Exactly. And that is where we're going today. We are leaving the happy, theoretical, slightly delusional land of perfect competition we talked about last time.
Right. That magical place where everyone is a price taker, profits are minimal, and everything is super efficient.
We're done with that for now. Today, we are entering the dark forest of market structures. We're talking about the monopolist, the oligopolist, and the messy reality of how markets actually work when power is concentrated.
Which, if we're being honest, is how a huge portion of the real economy operates.
Oh, absolutely. We are diving into Chapter 6 of the NCERT Class 12 Microeconomics text, Non-Competitive Markets.
But before we crack open the economics of power, and trust me, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of the math and the graphs, I have a humble request for you, our listener. We're going deep today, and our mission is to help you master this for your exams. If you find value in this, if we help you unlock these concepts, please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel.
It really does help.
And here is the big ask. If you're capable, if you have the means, please support us on Patreon. It allows us to keep bringing this super useful content to you, free from the constraints of, big media algorithms.
Absolutely. And on that note, we have to give a massive shout out to all our current supporters. You are the reason we can do this research, sit down, and break these complex topics down into something listenable. You guys are the fuel for this engine.
Seriously, thank you. Also, engage with us. Like the video, leave a valuable comment. It helps the community grow, and it tells the algorithm that smart people are watching this.
And for the serious aspirants listening, remember that free notes with practice previous year questions, the PYQs, are available right now on our Telegram channel.
That's a huge resource. And for those who want the ultimate edge, don't forget the private Telegram library. That gives you access to all the videos in this series at once, plus the premium notes.
Right, and those premium notes have detailed summaries, extra PYQs, and model mains answers. Just DM us on the public Telegram channel to join that.
Okay, housekeeping done. Let's look at the roadmap. We are tackling Chapter 6. Our mission is to move away from the utopia of perfect competition and understand monopolies, monopolistic competition, and oligopolies.
And I want to frame this correctly right from the start. This is not just textbook theory. This is your toolkit. If you want to answer high-level UPSC questions about, say, British economic history, or the 1991 liberalization reforms, or even modern industrial policy regarding steel or telecom,
You need this.
you need to understand the mechanics of these curves. You need to know why a monopoly creates a deadweight loss and why an oligopoly is like a strategic poker game.
So let's start with the big bad wolf of economics, the monopolist, Section 1, the one seller. When we say monopoly, I think we all have a vague idea. Big company, high prices, maybe a guy with a monocle and a top hat. But strictly speaking, looking at the text, how do we define the beast? Is it just about being big?
That's a great question. It's not necessarily about size, but about structure. The text is very specific. A monopoly exists when a market structure has a single seller.
Condition 1.
That's condition 1. The firm is the industry. There's no distinction between the market for water and Dave's water company. Dave is the market.
Right. In perfect competition, the firm is just a tiny drop in the ocean. Here, the firm is the ocean.
Exactly. Then, condition 2, there are no close substitutes. You can't just switch to Pepsi if Coke is too expensive, because in a true monopoly, Pepsi doesn't exist. There isn't even RC Cola.
Nothing.
And condition 3, this is the crucial one. High barriers to entry. There are legal, technical, or natural restrictions that prevent anyone else from setting up shop and competing.
So it's a walled garden. Now, let me contrast this with our previous deep dive on perfect competition. We kept using this phrase, price taker for the competitive firm. The wheat farmer looks at the market price and just says, okay, I guess that's what I'm selling for. He has zero power.
Correct. But the monopolist is a price maker. This is the fundamental shift. Because they're the only seller, the demand curve for the firm is the same as the market demand curve. They don't look at a price tag, they write the price tag.
Visually, that changes everything, right? The wheat farmer saw a flat, horizontal line. Price was fixed. What does the monopolist see when they look at their chart?
The monopolist looks out and sees the entire market demand, which is, of course, downward sloping.
Sloping down.
And this implies a critical trade-off. The monopolist has power, yes, but not infinite power. They can set the price, or they can decide how much quantity to sell. They cannot set both independently.
Okay, let's unpack that because that feels like a gotcha. Why can't they just say, I'm selling 1 million units at $1 million each?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm the monopoly, I'm the boss, right?
You're the boss of supply, but you are not the boss of the consumer's wallet. The consumer still has a choice, to buy or not to buy. And since the demand curve slopes down, the law of demand still applies. If the monopolist wants to sell more quantity, they must lower the price. If they want to keep the price sky high, they have to accept selling less quantity.
So they're constrained.
They are constrained by the consumer's willingness to pay. They're sort of riding that line. They can choose which point on the line to be at, but they can't just jump off the line into Fantasyland.
I see. There's a really interesting paradox mentioned in the text here, using Coca-Cola and Pepsi as an example. It distinguishes between competitive structure and competitive behavior. This confused me a bit at first.
Yes, this is a brilliant nuance, and it's something that can catch people out in exams. Think about a market with perfect competition like thousands and thousands of wheat farmers.
Right.
That has a very competitive structure because there's so many of them. But the behavior, it's not competitive at all.
What do you mean?
Farmer A isn't launching ad campaigns to destroy Farmer B. Farmer B isn't trying to spy on Farmer A's tractor technology. They just sell at the market price. They're passive.
Right. They're just existing. They aren't fighting each other.
But now look at Coke and Pepsi. That's an oligopoly, not a monopoly, but it's a market with very few firms. The structure is less competitive, but the behavior...
It's war.
It is war. They fight over every inch of shelf space. They spend billions on advertising to steal just 1% of market share from each other.
So monopoly is the extreme end, where the structure is completely non-competitive and the behavior is, well, non-existent. There's no one to fight.
Exactly. A pure monopoly is the silence of competition. They don't worry about the other guy because there is no other guy. They only worry about one thing: the consumer's demand curve. They are playing a single-player game.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of that single-player game. Section 2, the math of power. We need to talk about TR, AR, and MR. I feel like this is where eyes glaze over, but the text insists this is the key to understanding why monopolies are considered inefficient.
It is the engine under the hood. If you don't get this, you don't really get the economics. So let's break down the alphabet soup. TR is total revenue. AR is average revenue. MR is marginal revenue.
The text gives us a specific numerical example, which is helpful. Let's walk through it visually for the listener. Imagine a demand function. P equals 10 minus 0.5 Q. Okay, don't panic at the equation. It's just a straight line going downwards. If you sell 0 units, so Q is 0, the price is 10.
Right.
If you sell 20 units, so Q is 20, the price is 0. It's basically a slide going down from a price of 10 to a price of 0.
Got it. So at price 10, nobody buys. At price 0, everyone takes it for free.
Correct. Now, total revenue, TR, is just price times quantity, P times Q. If you plot this on a graph, it forms an inverted vertical parabola.
An inverted parabola. So it's shaped like a hill.
Exactly like a hill. Imagine you're walking up this hill. At the start, you lower the price a little bit, maybe from 10 to 9. You sell some units. Your total revenue goes from 0 to a positive number. You are climbing the hill.
Okay, makes sense. More sales, more money.
You keep lowering the price to sell more. Revenue keeps going up, up, up. You reach the peak of the hill. But then, and this is the weird part, if you keep trying to sell more, you have to lower the price so much that your total revenue actually starts to fall. You are walking down the other side of the hill. Wait, pause there. How can selling more stuff make my total revenue fall? That feels completely counterintuitive. Usually, more sales equals more money.
That is the trap of the downward sloping demand curve. And it's the core of monopoly power. To sell those extra units at the bottom of the curve, let's say the 18th or 19th unit, you have to lower the price to almost nothing.
Right.
You might be selling 19 units, but if you're selling them for 50 cents each, your total take is tiny compared to selling, say, 10 units at $5 each.
I see. So there is a sweet spot at the top of that hill. You don't want to sell the maximum amount possible. You want to make the maximum amount of money.
Precisely. Now, let's look at average revenue. This one's simple. Average revenue is the price. So the AR curve is just the demand curve itself, a straight line sloping downwards.
Okay, that's straightforward enough. Now for the tricky one, marginal revenue, MAR.
This is the game changer. Marginal revenue is the change in total revenue from selling one more unit. In perfect competition, MR was just equal to the price. If the price of wheat is $10, selling one more bushel gets you exactly $10. It was a flat line.
But in a monopoly.
In a monopoly, MR is always lower than the price. The MR curve sits below the AR curve, and it falls faster.
Why? That's the intuitive leap I need. Why is the marginal revenue less than the price tag on the item I just sold?
Okay, think about it like this. The monopolist in this simple model generally can't price discriminate. They have to sell to everyone at the same price.
Okay.
So to sell that one extra unit, they have to lower the price. But, and this is the absolute key, they don't just lower the price for the new customer, they have to lower the price for all the previous units they were already going to sell at a higher price.
Oh, I'm trying to put that in real terms. Let's say I'm selling 10 buckets of water at $5 each. My total revenue is $50.
Right.
Now the 11th guy comes along. He's only willing to pay $4.50. So to sell to him, I have to drop my price to $4.50.
Correct. For everybody.
So I sell the 11th bucket for $4.50. That's money in my pocket.
You have to buy.
But I also had to drop the price for the first 10 guys from $5 down to $4.50. So I lost 50 cents on 10 people. That's a $5 loss.
Bingo. You gained 4.50 from the new guy, but you lost 5.0 from your existing customers. Your net change, your marginal revenue, is actually negative 50 cents.
That is wild. Even though the price is positive and marginal revenue is negative, I actually lost money by making that sale.
Exactly. That loss on the existing customers is what drags the marginal revenue down, and that is why the MR curve falls twice as fast as the demand curve.
And this brings us to elasticity.
It does. We touched on this in previous deep dives, but there's a rule of thumb here from the text that connects MR directly to elasticity.
Yeah, let's nail this because I know this comes up in the objective type questions.
It's a great mental check. When MR is positive, meaning selling more adds to your total pile of cash, you're on the left side of that revenue hill you're climbing up. Here, demand is elastic. The elasticity is greater than 1.
Okay. Climbing the hill equals elastic. Got it.
When MR is 0, that's the very peak of the hill. You have squeezed every last penny possible out of the market. Demand is unitary elastic. Elasticity equals 1. Total revenue is maximized.
And when MR becomes negative, like in my water bucket example,
that means demand is inelastic. Elasticity is less than 1. Selling more actually hurts you. You're on the downside of the hill.
right?
A smart monopolist will never voluntarily operate in the inelastic portion of the demand curve. Why would you do more work to earn less money?
That makes perfect sense. You want to be climbing the hill or standing on top of it. You definitely don't want to start falling down the other side.
Yeah.
So we know how the revenue works. Now, where does the monopolist actually stop? Where is the equilibrium? Section 3, finding equilibrium.
Let's go back to your village well.
Okay. Scenario A, the village well with 0 cost. Let's assume the owner doesn't have to pay for electricity or labor. The water just bubbles up. Cost is 0.
If cost is 0, then profit maximization is simple. You just want to maximize revenue.
So you want to find the absolute top of that total revenue hill.
Which is exactly where MR equals 0.
Right.
In the text's math example, if the maximum demand at 0 price is 20 units, the monopolist stops exactly halfway. They sell 10 units.
And this creates an artificial scarcity, doesn't it? The village could use 20 units, the water is there, it's free, but the owner deliberately stops at 10.
Yes. They physically restrict supply to keep the price up. They create scarcity to maximize their own return.
Wait, hold on, though. If I own the well and the water's bubbling up for free, why on earth would I stop at 10 buckets? If the 11th villager walks up, even with a few pennies, why would I send him away? That feels like leaving money on the table.
It feels that way, doesn't it? It feels completely illogical. But remember our math from just a minute ago. To sell to that 11th villager, you have to lower the price.
For everyone.
For everyone. And
Right.
if you do that, you lose more revenue from the first 10 villagers than you gain from the new one. The math says stop at 10. Keep the price high. Let the other 10 villagers go thirsty. It is cold, hard, profit-maximizing logic.
That is brutal. Okay, now let's get real. Scenario B, positive costs. In the real world, it costs money to pump the water, filter it, bottle it. How does that change the equation?
The goal is still to maximize profit, which is total revenue minus total cost. The
Mhm.
golden rule of microeconomics kicks in here. MR equals MC. Marginal revenue must equal marginal cost.
We hear this rule a lot, MR equals MC. Can we visualize what happens if they aren't equal? Why is that the magic point?
Sure. Imagine MR is $10 and your marginal cost, your MC, is $5. So selling one more unit brings in $10 and costs you $5 to make. You make a $5 profit on that unit. Should you do it?
Absolutely, I do that all day long.
So you keep producing. You keep expanding. But as you expand, MR falls because of the demand curve, and usually MC rises. Eventually, they meet.
And what if you go too far?
Now imagine you go too far. MR is now $4, but MC is $5. Selling that unit loses you $1. You should stop. So the equilibrium, the profit-maximizing sweet spot, is the exact point where the curves cross. MR equals MC.
And there's a secondary condition, right? Something about the shape of the curve.
Yes, a small technical point, but important for a complete answer. The MC curve must be rising. It must cut the MR curve from below. That just ensures you're at a maximum profit point, not a minimum.
Now, the big question, ideally for us as consumers, we want cheap stuff and lots of it. How does the monopoly equilibrium compare to perfect competition? What is the social cost?
This is the verdict, really. This is the core argument against monopoly. If that village well were owned by the community or competed over by many sellers, perfect competition, the price would be driven down to the marginal cost.
Right.
Quantity would be high, price would be low. But in a monopoly, the price is higher than marginal cost, and the quantity is lower.
So it's a transfer of wealth.
It's a transfer of wealth from the consumer, who pays more, to the firm, which makes what we call supernormal profit. But it's worse than that. There's also a deadweight loss.
Okay, explain that term, deadweight loss. It sounds ominous.
It is. Imagine a villager who is willing to pay $7 for water, and the cost to pump that water is only $5. In an efficient market, that trade should happen.
Yeah, everyone wins.
The villager gets water, the pump recovers his cost and makes a bit of profit. Society is better off. But the monopolist has set the price at $10 to maximize his profit.
So the guy with $7 gets nothing.
He gets nothing. He goes thirsty. That trade doesn't happen. That potential value, the $2 of surplus, the satisfaction of thirst, it simply vanishes from the economy. It's a loss to society that no one captures. It's just gone.
That sounds like a clear market failure. But the text does include a section on critical views. It's not all one-sided bashing.
No, and for a good UPSC answer, you absolutely need this nuance. You can't just write, monopolies are evil, the end.
So what's the other side?
Well, argument one, pure monopoly is actually quite rare. There's almost always some substitute. If the well water is too expensive, maybe people buy bottled water from the next town or they start collecting rainwater. The market is dynamic. Argument two is about creative destruction. Joseph Schumpeter's idea. Technology breaks monopolies. The railroad monopoly wasn't broken by another better railroad. It was broken by trucks and airplanes.
So innovation from the outside can disrupt it.
Exactly. And argument three is the most controversial one. It's sort of a defensive monopoly, the innovation argument.
Go on.
Think about it. Perfect competition drives profits down to zero. If you have zero profit, how do you fund a billion-dollar research and development lab?
You can't.
You can't. Monopolies, because they have these massive supernormal profits, can afford to invest in the future. They can fund the moonshots, the new drugs, the space travel, the AI research that 1,000 small competitive firms simply can't afford to.
That is a fascinating trade-off. We pay more for our phone now, but maybe that's what funds the development of the next generation of technology. It's like a tax for innovation.
Precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears. Section 4. We're leaving the village well, and we're entering the grocery store. Specifically, the biscuit aisle.
Monopolistic competition. This is what I like to call the biscuit economy.
The text calls this monopolistic competition, which I have to say sounds like a complete contradiction. Is it a monopoly or is it a competition? Make up your mind.
It's both. It's the messy middle where most of our daily life actually happens.
Okay, so what are the features?
It has a large number of firms, just like perfect competition. There's free entry and exit, so anyone can start a biscuit company. BUT, and this is the big but, the products are not identical. They are differentiated.
Right. A Pearl G is not just a generic glucose biscuit. Hide and Seek is not a bourbon. They're distinct. They have brands.
Exactly. And because of that brand differentiation, each firm has a tiny little monopoly over its own brand. Parle has a monopoly on the specific taste and packaging of Parle-G.
So if they raise the price by, say, 10 pays, they won't lose all their customers.
Exactly. Some people are loyal. They just love that specific taste. They'll pay a little extra.
So if I walk into the supermarket, I see 50 types of biscuits. But you're saying this isn't perfect competition.
It's definitely not. In perfect competition, a potato is a potato. You don't see a farmer running a huge TV ad campaign for Steve's Special Spuds.
No.
But have you ever seen a commercial for Oreos?
Constantly. Twist, lick, dunk. It's ingrained in my brain.
That ad exists to convince you that an Oreo is not just a generic chocolate sandwich cookie. They are building a mental monopoly. They want your personal demand curve for Oreos to be steep. They want you to think, if the price goes up a little, I'm still buying Oreos because the generic brand just isn't the same.
They're trying to make me inelastic.
Exactly. They're trying to escape the brutality of perfect competition by building a moat around their product made of brand loyalty. So the demand curve is downward sloping, like a monopoly, but it is much flatter or more elastic than a pure monopoly.
Why is it flatter?
Because unlike the Village Well, there are substitutes. If the price of Oreo triples, you might be loyal, but you'll eventually switch to bourbon or some other brand. Your loyalty has limits.
What about the long run here? If I see you making a fortune selling expert speakers' artisanal cookies, I'm going to start host speakers' grandma's cookies right next door.
And that is the competition part of a monopolistic competition. My profits attract you. You enter the market. You steal some of my customers. My demand curve shifts to the left.
And more people join.
And more people join, and eventually, in the long run, profits are driven down to zero.
Wait, zero? Just like perfect competition. That's surprising.
Just like perfect competition. In the long run, the demand curve shifts until it just touches the average cost curve. But here is the catch, and it's an important one. The price is still slightly higher than the minimum possible cost, and the output is slightly lower than what would be perfectly efficient.
So what are we paying for?
We're paying a small premium for variety. The cost of having 50 types of biscuits to choose from instead of just one generic nutrition block is that we all pay slightly more than the absolute minimum price.
I think most of us would say that's a fair trade. I like having options.
Me too. We trade a little bit of efficiency for a lot of variety.
Okay, moving on to Section 5, the oligopoly, the strategic few.
This is where it gets really interesting. It's like a game of chess, or maybe a thriller movie. Oligopoly means a market with just a few big players.
Think telecom companies.
Perfect example. Jio, Airtel, V, or airlines, or soft drinks.
The key word here from the text is interdependence.
Yes, this is the single defining feature. In perfect competition, you ignore the other guy because he's too small to matter. In Monopoly, there is no other guy. In Oligopoly, you watch the other guy like a hawk.
Every move matters.
Every move. If Jio cuts data prices, Airtel must react. If Coke runs a massive new ad campaign, Pepsi must respond. Everything Firm A does directly affects Firm B's bottom line.
And the text says there are basically two ways they can behave.
Broadly, yes. Option 1, collusion. They get together, maybe in a secret meeting, and they realize, hey, if we fight, we both lose money. Let's hold hands, act like a single monopoly, raise prices, and split the massive profits.
That's a cartel. Like OPEC with oil.
Exactly. They try to maximize their joint profits. But this is inherently unstable because there's always an incentive to cheat. One firm thinks, if I secretly sell a little more at a slightly lower price, I make huge money. It's the classic prisoner's dilemma.
And option 2 is just competition.
They fight. And because they're big, the fight can be brutal. Price wars, advertising battles, and so on. The text uses the Cournot example for a duopoly. That's a market with just two firms.
Well, let's break that down simply. We don't need all the calculus, just the intuition.
Right. The Cournot model assumes the firms compete on quantity. Firm A decides how much to produce based on what it thinks Firm B will produce. It's a reaction.
So if he produces 100, I think I should produce 50.
Something like that. And Firm B is doing the same calculation. The math shows that they eventually land somewhere in the middle.
What does in the middle mean?
The total output they produce together is more than a monopoly would produce, but it's less than perfect competition. And the price is lower than a monopoly's price, but it's still higher than the price under perfect competition.
So it seems like all roads lead to this middle ground, unless you have one of the two pure extremes.
Correct. The real world, for the most part, operates in these shades of gray.
Okay, we've covered the curves, the math, the biscuits, and the price wars. Now let's get to the part our simplified UPSC by PPP listeners are really waiting for. Section 6, UPSC Context and Application.
Let's do it.
We have the theory. How do we apply this to the previous year? Questions that were provided in our source stack.
This is critical. You cannot just memorize the definition of MRMC. You have to use it as a lens to view history and policy. Let's look at that 2014 PYQ about British economic policy. The question asks about the various facets of colonial policy from the mid-18th century to independence.
How does Chapter 6 help us answer a history question? I thought we were doing economics.
History is economics in action. Think about the structure. The British East India Company wasn't just a political ruler, it was an economic firm.
Okay.
For raw materials from Indian farmers, cotton, indigo, opium, the British often acted as a monopsony. That's a single buyer.
Ah, the flip side of a monopoly.
Exactly. As the only buyer, they could dictate the price. They bought low, squeezing the farmers' profits. Then, for the finished goods sold back to India, like textiles from Manchester, they often held monopoly power or used tariffs to exclude Indian competitors.
So the drain of wealth that Dadabhai and Nauroji talked about wasn't just, simple theft. It was built into the market structure.
It was the systematic extraction of producer and consumer surplus. If you draw the monopoly graph in your exam answer, shade the profit area, and label it represents drain of wealth, you aren't just reciting history. You're analyzing economic power. That will stand out to an examiner.
That is a fantastic tip. What about the 2016 PYQ regarding liberalization? It asks us about the response of the Indian government to the demands of liberalization, privatization, and globalization.
The 1991 reforms are a perfect case study in shifting from Chapter 6, the non-competitive world, towards Chapter 4, the perfectly competitive ideal.
How so?
Pre-1991, many sectors were reserved for the public sector, that is, by definition, a state monopoly. The license Raj created massive barriers to entry. That artificially created oligopolies where only a few licensed firms, like Bajaj in the scooter market, could operate.
So liberalization was basically tearing down those walls.
Yes. Removing barriers to entry allows new firms to come in. The supply curve shifts to the right, prices fall, quantity increases. When you discuss the benefits of liberalization in your mains answer, you can explain it through the efficiency gains of moving from a non-competitive market towards a more competitive one. The economic rationale is all about maximizing total welfare and reducing that deadweight loss we talked about.
Let's look at the 2013 PYQ on the food security bill. This one feels different.
It's interesting because it flips the script. Usually we say monopolies are bad, but the very existence of the food security bill implies that the free market failed to distribute food to the poor.
Market failure.
Yes. So here the government intervenes. It acts as a massive monopsony, buying wheat and rice at MSP, and then as a sort of monopoly provider, distributing it through the PDS.
And the question asks about apprehensions in implementation.
Right. So you can use the concepts from this chapter to discuss how state monopolies, because they don't face competition, often face issues of inefficiency, what economists sometimes call X-inefficiency. They have no profit-driven incentive to check for leakages, corruption, or storage losses.
Finally, the geography and industry questions. The 2020 and 2025 PYQs about the iron and steel industries.
Steel is a classic oligopoly, and the reason is right there in the chapter. Barriers to entry. You need massive capital, huge blast furnaces, access to raw iron ore and coal. You can't just start a steel mill in your garage like a tech startup.
Right.
Understanding the barriers to entry concept explains why the industry is concentrated in certain locations and why there are only a few big players like Tata, JSW, and SAIL. The geography and the capital requirements create the oligopolistic market structure.
This connects the dots so well. It's not just abstract graphs, it's the blueprint of the actual economy.
That is the goal.
We're coming to the end of this deep dive. Let's quickly recap the spectrum of markets before we sign off.
Okay, let's picture a line. On the far left, you have perfect competition. Infinite sellers, identical products, price takers, best for consumers.
Okay.
Move a little to the right, you get monopolistic competition. Many sellers, but brands matter. You get variety, but at a slightly higher price. That's the biscuit aisle.
Got it.
Further right, you have the oligopoly, the strategic few. Interdependence is key. It can lead to collusion or all-out war. Think Coke versus Pepsi.
And all the way at the end?
On the far right, you have pure monopoly. The one, the price maker. High price, low quantity, and massive barriers to entry. That's our village well.
And here is a final provocative thought for you to chew on. We spent the last hour basically learning that monopolies are the villains. They gouge prices, they restrict supply, they create that deadweight loss.
That's the standard view, yes, but...
If we smash them all, if we force every single industry into perfect competition where profits are zero, nobody has any money left over to invent the next iPhone. If Apple had to sell iPhones at the marginal cost of production, just the cost of the glass and the chips, they'd have zero profit to design the next chip. The M4, the M5, that research costs billions.
That's the Schumpeterian paradox, isn't it? We hate the monopolists' power, but we love the innovation that their massive profits can fund.
Something to think about next time you buy a coffee from a massive global chain. Is that deadweight loss? We're paying for just the price of admission for the modern world.
A fascinating question to leave them with.
Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive. We really hope this helped clarify Chapter 6 and, more importantly, how to apply it.
It was a real pleasure.
Once again, a reminder to please subscribe to Simplified UPSC by PPP. If you can, please support us on Patreon to keep all this content coming. And a massive thank you to our supporters. You guys are the absolute best.
We couldn't do it without you.
Don't forget to like, comment, and share this with your study group. And head over to our public Telegram for all those free notes and PYQs. If you want the premium experience with the model answers and the organized library, just DM us there to join the private library.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.